Why would someone mistreat another person? Right? Why would someone mistreat another person?
Lack of empathy.
Lack of empathy, very good.
They don't really like that person.
They don't like that person. David?
After they'll feel powerful to mistreat somebody.
Say that again.
They feel powerful to mistreat somebody.
Very good, yes.
Feeling entitled.
Feeling entitled. Christine, did you have your hand up? To show off, very good.
To feel superior.
To feel superior. And these are all reasons, right, why someone would mistreat someone, right? I've been in a position a long time ago where I've mistreated someone purposely, right? And it was one of those reasons. So in this chapter, I want us to notice the changes we see in Clay's behavior, okay? This is a very important chapter for Clay. Clay's interaction with Amari, Clay's interaction with Tidbit. So I want us to really pay attention to the changes in Clay's behavior, okay? We've seen Clay last chapter, right, where he did something for Amari. Do we remember what he did for Amari last chapter? Yes.
Gave her biscuits or like treats from town.
Right, okay? He showed a little bit of love and kindness to her, right? So in this chapter, we want to see the various changes that Clay goes through in this chapter, okay? We are going to start on page 156. And that's at the point where Clay picks up Tidbit, okay? In the PDF, what page is that, Titus? Okay. It's 156 for everyone who has the book. You got it open, Richard? All right. 94? Okay, on 94, okay? I'm gonna start it up. And as usual, then we'll take turns. Clay grinned. I have some friends visiting from Charlestown. We decided to go alligator hunting this afternoon, and we need some gator bait. Teeny clasped her hand to her mouth. Amari saw desperation in her eyes. Finally, Teeny said, her voice full of pleading, he'd be too young for such stuff. He's just the right size, Clay replied, patting the boy on his backside. He can't swim, sir, she implored. Then he'll learn today, Clay replied. He glanced at Amari then. Hey, Mina, you ever seen a gator hunt? Amari glanced at Teeny before saying, no, sir. Then come and watch. I want my friends to see what I got for my birthday. Besides, I have missed your company, Clay said boldly. Amari wasn't sure what was happening or what she should do, so she looked at Teeny again. The look on Teeny's face truly frightened Amari, because for the first time since she had arrived at the plantation, Teeny looked terrified. Go, child, Teeny urged her. I pray you bring my boy back alive. You never know, Clay said merrily. Sometimes the gators are fast, and sometimes they are slow. How do you think Teeny feels at this point? How does Teeny feel? Yes, Jeremiah. Scared. How about you, Dylan?
Terrified.
Terrified. David?
Anxious.
Anxious.
Nervous.
Nervous. Frightened. Scared. Right? Imagine someone taking your little child to use as gator bait. Clay ignored her. Mina will return in a couple of hours, either with a boy who's ripe to be gator bait again next week, or a few of his fingers and toes left over to bury. Then he turned on his heel, and with Tidbit still over his shoulder like a sack of flour, he headed across the yard. Amari followed, wondering what new cruelty Clay had in store. Tidbit was only 4, but he knew when to keep his mouth shut. He stopped struggling and crying out, although Amari knew he had to be petrified. His eyes searched for Hush Puppy, who lay in the yard, licking his hindquarters where he had been kicked. When Tidbit saw the dog was all right, he kept his eyes on Amari as she hurried behind Clay. Clay headed down to the river, whistling and stopping occasionally to spit. Amari had always hated that particular habit. Standing near the shore of the Ashley River ahead of them, Amari could see three young men about the same age as Clay. One dressed all in leather, stood next to a handsome black horse that stamped its hooves on the soft grass. Another, who wore an elaborate lace collar and cuffs, looked overdressed even to Amari, who had no knowledge of the fashion of rich white youth. He gazed serenely at the water. The other young man, dressed more casually, had curly red hair, like the sailor who had taught her the words. He tossed rocks into the water as they waited for Clay. All four of them gave off an air of superiority and power that frightened Amari. Their presence made her even more weary of what might happen. The young man with the ruffled collar held about 100-foot length of rope in his hands. 4 muskets leaned against the tree, the branches of which hung over the water. 2 other horses grazed nearby. Clay called out to his friends as he got close. "Hooloo! Feeling like a little gator stew tonight?" "If we're lucky," one of them replied. Evidently, the 3 young men thought that was so funny. They laughed uproariously. Amari understood enough English to know that Tidbit was in real trouble. "I told you I knew where to find the best gator in the world. Gator bait in the world," he boasted as he lowered Tidbit to the ground. It seemed to Amari that Clay was trying a little too hard, talking a little too loudly, showing off for his friends. "Just the right size," the owner of the black horse said as he poked Tidbit with his toe. Tidbit cringed. Amari wanted to reach out and comfort Tidbit, but she dared not. The boy looked from Clay to each of the young men, and though his little body shook with fear, he didn't make a sound. Taking the rope from his overdressed friend, Clay gave it to Amari and ordered, "Tie the rope around him, Mina." "So who is this delicious slice of slave girl?" asked the young man, dressed in leather. He reached over and patted Amari on her backside. With sudden fierceness, Clay jumped between Amari and the young man who had touched her. "Keep your hands off her," he snarled. "She is mine. That is why I've named her Mina." Amari was so surprised, she dropped the rope. The leather-clad friend backed away and held up his hand. "I had the pick of the women on my father's plantation," he said. "I was just asking who this one was." Clay, seemingly calmer, replied, "She was my birthday gift this year. I wanted the 3 of you to see her." Again, Amari couldn't understand why Clay acted as if he was proud of her, showing her off to his friends. She felt like an animal on display, almost as bad as the day she was sold at the market. She hung her head and wished she could disappear into the waters of that river. Okay, so what do we see here with Clay's behavior so far? Yes?
Trying to show off what he gotten for his birthday.
He wants to show off what he received for his birthday. Very good, yes.
He's protecting Amari a lot.
He's protecting Amari. Okay, do we agree with that? How is he protecting her?
When one of his friends tried to touch her, he went in between him and pushed him away toward that.
Right, so we see him being protective over Mina, right? AKA Amari. But what about Tidbit? What is his behavior towards Tidbit?
He says that he knows where to find the best gator bait.
Say it a little louder so Jeremiah can hear you.
That he knows where to find the best gator bait.
And what did Amari think about his behavior? What did she think about Clay's behavior? Yes.
She didn't know why he was acting like he was playing with her.
Right. Yes.
She was trying a little too hard.
Right. And what do we call that when someone's trying a little too hard? What's another word for that? What else do we say?
Bragging.
Bragging, right? What else? Showing off, right? Someone showing off, bragging, right? Very interesting. We've never seen Clay interact with anyone other than Amari, right? Or with his father. So it's very interesting to see how he is reacting with his peers, right? His friends his age. To Amari, Clay repeated, I'm sorry. Okay, to Amari, Clay repeated, tie the boy with the rope. Make sure it is secure. Amari nodded and hugged the trembling child as she knotted the rope. She whispered in Tibbet's ear, be brave, little one, and hold your breath. She stood up and reluctantly handed the rope to Clay. In control of the situation once more, Clay stooped down and said to Tibbet, all you must do is swim, little. We're not going to say the word, right? You hear? If you can swim faster than those gators, you get to go home to your mama, understand? Tippet quivered and nodded. He looked at Amari one last time before Clay picked him up and abruptly tossed him into the river. Clay held the rope while his friends laughed and cheered as the little boy swam for his life. Now, would you look at that? The tallest one called out, pointing to Tibbet struggling in the water. The little boy can swim. Okay, I'm not going to repeat that word. The little boy can swim. Tibbet thrashed about hysterically, his tiny face wild with fear. I've never seen anyone move his arms and legs so fast, Clay said, laughing. All that splashing ought to attract the gator soon, another one remarked. As Amari watched Tibbet bobble in the water, for the first time since she had been captured, she felt angry enough to lash out and kill. She was sick of tears, of submission, of putting up with inhumane treatment. She knew if she couldn't do something to save Tibbet, she might explode. Finally, she could hold it in no longer. Stop! She cried hysterically. Please stop! Bring Tibbet back, please! She broke down sobbing. Clay's three friends stopped their cheering and stared in astonishment at this slave girl who had nerve enough to try to interrupt an afternoon sport. Clay, with surprising calm, told Amari, if you don't let us continue, your little friend is likely to get eaten. Now shut up. He did not hit her as she expected him to. Amari, defeated, looked from Clay to his friends in utter disbelief. This was beyond her grasp. To torture a child like this. What kind of people are they? And then she saw it. The dark figure of an alligator appeared in the water near Tibbet's splashing feet. She held her breath. Oh, look! Here comes the first gator, called out Clay's friend with the red curly hair. Instantly, their attention turned from Amari to the river again. In one smooth motion, the lace-collared fellow snatched up his musket, cocked it, and fired. Kaboom! The musket shot sounded like an explosion as it was fired at the alligator. The water turned bright red as the animal rolled over in the water. The startled horses reared and pulled up at the ropes that tied them to the trees. You got him, Conrad, Clay shouted to his friend. Amari could see only bloody water and foam in the distance. She couldn't tell if Tibbet had been shot or bit or had survived. She didn't know what she would do if she had to return to Teeny without the boy. Good shot, one of the others called out. Pull the boy in and let him catch his breath, Clay ordered. The next gator will be mine, he said as he checked his gun. Conrad hauled Tibbet in. The boy, dripping with blood and water, scrambled up the muddy shore next to them. He was shivering uncontrollably, but he seemed unhurt. Amari ran to him, kneeled down on the muddy riverbank, and hugged him tightly. As she felt his narrow shoulders shake, the fury she had felt earlier began to build once more. She wasn't sure how much more of this she could take. She whispered in her native language the same words of comfort that Afi had once told her. In spite of all you must endure, my little Tibbet, the flame of your life spirit will not leave you. Then, because she knew he would not understand what she was saying, she told him in English, you will live. You are strong. Do you understand? Tibbet nodded miserably. Enough of that, Clay shouted. He pulled Tibbet away from Amari, made sure the rope was still secure, and pitched the boy back into the water. This time, 2 alligators surfaced. Amari wanted to scream out once more, but she realized she couldn't distract the hunters. They had to shoot or Tibbet would be attacked. She wished she could run and snatch Tibbet out of the water and just disappear. Tibbet paddled furiously as the alligator circled him. 2 shots exploded in the afternoon sunshine as both Clay and one of his friends fired at the huge reptiles. Amari wondered for how much longer the child could be tortured so. How do we think Tidbit feels at this point? Yes.
He is terrified out of his mind. He's like scared to death. That
Yes.
He's gonna be getting out of his anytime soon.
Yes, thank you.
He's petrified.
Petrified. Same words they used in there. Very good.
Horrified.
Horrified. Imagine experiencing something like that, right? You have to swim very quickly. These alligators are coming. I mean, alligators are not little things, right? They're very huge. And this is a sport, right? This is a sport for them. This is them having fun. How do we think Omari feels at this point of the story? Edson.
She feels disgusted.
Disgusted. Why disgusted?
She doesn't believe that people would do that to like such a small child.
Right. Do you believe that people actually did things like this? Do you think this is history or you think this is fictional? History, right? What else is Amari feeling? Amanda? Anger. How do we know she feels anger?
Because she said that if she could kill him, she will.
Have we ever seen Amari with this type of feeling or emotion before? Never, right? This is a big deal for her. Yes. She feels powerless. Yes. And that's a conflict, right? To feel so angry that you want to kill, right? But then know that you can't, right? And why didn't she at that point? Because she did do something, right? What did she do initially? The first time. What did she do the first time?
He yelled at them to stop and kill him.
Right. But the second time they did it, she didn't do it, right? Why didn't she do it, Kevin?
So then, she doesn't want to distract the hunters. So,
Right,
Tibbet
right.
wouldn't die.
Right. Because what is on her mind? What is she thinking about at this point?
Protecting Tibbet.
Yes, protecting Tidbit, right? And then we see some of the wisdom that she received from Afi, right? She was able to give to Tidbit, right? And explain to him, you're strong. It's the same way that Afi has always said to her, okay? We're going to keep on. And what do we see about Clay's behavior now? What's going on with Clay's behavior? When Amari shouted to stop, what was his behavior? What was going on in his mind, do you think? Yes.
I think that he was saying that just because his family.
Right. Very good. Yes.
That he's getting embarrassed in front of his friends because that she told him.
Say that louder so they can hear you.
That he was getting embarrassed of her in front of his friends because she told him.
Right. Do we agree with that? Do you agree with that? Yeah? You agree with that, David? What else is going on with Clay? Right? What do we think is going to happen at the end of the chapter between Clay and Amari? What do you think he's going to do?
He's not gonna do anything.
He's not going to do anything? He won't even say anything to her?
He's just gonna forgive her.
You said he's going to do what?
He's gonna forgive her.
Oh, forgive her. Okay.
He's really mad that she talked, that she was young and stuff. Because like she is his own, and then like he owns her.
Right. Why wouldn't he try to beat her the way that his father did? Yes.
Because his friends are there.
Because his friends are there, but he can beat her to show power, right?
And also because he was in the middle of doing the sport.
Okay, yes, Christine.
He wants Amari to like him, not to be afraid of him.
Say that again,
He wants Amari to like him and not be afraid of him.
right? Because Clay feels what about Amari? What does he feel about her?
He feels that she's the only one that loves him.
She's the what?
The only one that loves him.
The only one that likes him, okay? Let's see what happens at the end of the chapter here. Twice more, Tippet was tossed into the bloody water, and twice more he barely escaped the jaws of the hungry alligators. It seemed to Amari that the young men always waited until the last possible moment to fire. Tippett almost seemed to be in shock by the time they finally decided their afternoon enjoyment was over. He could barely walk. Amari ran and picked him up. "It is getting late," Clay said to his friends as he untied the rope from around Tippett's waist. "And this game is beginning to bore me. Let us retire to the house for supper, but I fear I no longer have a taste for gator stew." The other three young men reacted with loud laughter as they readied their horses. The one who rode the black horse reached down and hoisted Clay up so he could ride with him. Clay looked down at Amari and smiled as she tried to comfort Tippett. "We'll have to do this again sometime. I had fun. Didn't you?" "Yes, sir," Amari mumbled. Her fists were tight as she held Tippett. "And Mina?" he said, his tone changing from warm to cold in an instant. She looked at him in fearful expectation. "Don't you ever raise your voice to me again." "No, sir. Yes, sir," Amari stuttered. She knew she had escaped another beating, or worse. With that, Clay and his friends headed toward the north fields, where the corn was grown, whooping like children as they galloped off. Amari and Tippett headed slowly back to the house. Neither of them spoke. Halfway there, Hushpuppi met them, limping a little, but wagging his tail energetically. Tippett fell to the ground and buried his head in the dog's soft fur. Did we notice any changes in Clay's character? Yes.
He hit her or like attacked her or anything.
Say it louder so Jeremiah can hear you.
He didn't hit her or attack her. He warned her about everything that he did.
Okay.
It might be possible.
Right. What about from the beginning of the chapter to the end? What did we notice?
More aggressive.
He's what?
More aggressive.
More aggressive. Do we agree with that? Do we agree? Yes? No? You think that he's more aggressive?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that he's more aggressive? Is that the only reason why you think? Is the only reason he's more aggressive is because of his friends? Randy?
He was embarrassed by Amari in front of his friends.
Mm-hmm. So?
He got mad at her.
Mm. Uh-huh. So he got mad at her, Edson?
He kicked the dog in the beginning of the chapter.
Yes. He kicked that dog. He kicked that dog so hard the dog flew. Right? Yes.
Maybe he knows about the
Maybe he knows about, oh, very good. Do we agree with that? Say that again, Derek.
Maybe he knows that Amari gave the truth to Tippett and doesn't accept that.
Right? Remember we mentioned that yesterday. Maybe he's upset that Amari gave the treats to Tippett. Is that why he's targeting Tippett? You think so? What about his behavior with Mrs. Isabel, right? We notice how he is with her. We see how he is with Amari. And he didn't have an issue with Tippett before, right? What was Tippett's job for him? What did he have Tippett doing for him?
He would fight Amari every night for especially night.
Exactly. So why would he do that? Why would he use him for gator bait? Goes back to what we said in the beginning of the class. Why would someone mistreat another person? Why would he do this? Yes.
Show power.
To show power, right? What else?
To show that he's on top and nobody's the one.
He's the one in charge. You are the slave. I am the master. Don't do that again. Yes.
He could feel better about himself.
to feel better about himself. He asked a really weird question at the end. Do we remember what he asked her? What did he ask her?
If she had fun or not.
What did she say?
He mumbled that she did.
Yeah, but did she?
No.
No. Why did she say that she did?
Because she knew something bad could happen.
Right. Or
Or because he would have gotten upset and felt like that all she was.
right.
Yeah, so that's what he wants to hear.
She's giving him what he wants to hear. Right? Very good. Because she knows it'll be a problem. Okay? So we noticed various changes with Clay's character for various reasons, right? What I want us to do is I want us to think about Clay's. Well, how was Clay's reaction when his friend touched Amari? Yes.
He was like aggressive with them.
Yes, he was aggressive to him. We've never seen him like that, right? Clay like this.
And overprotected.
Overprotective, very good. Yes.
He was very defensive.
Defensive, right? Defending my minor. This is my minor. What I want us to think about over the weekend is how someone treats another person, right? How they mistreat them, the changes that Amari's character is going through with Clay, and what strength is she gaining at the end? I mean, what strength is she gaining by the end of this chapter, right, that we just read? And also with Clay, why would Clay, I'm trying to look for something, I'm so sorry. What is Clay trying to prove, right? I want us to think about that. What is Clay trying to prove? And do we see a change in behavior for Clay overall, right? Not just this chapter, but the whole story, right? Is there a change in his behavior? And why would Clay, what is Clay trying to prove? Okay? I'm going to give you all a few minutes to start working on your end of the chapter questions, okay? And I'll walk around as usual and see if you guys need any help, okay?